is from 1 Kings, chapter 19, verses 1 through 5, page 284 in your Pew Bible. Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah, saying, "So may the gods do to me, and more also, if I do not make your life like the life of one of them by this time tomorrow." Then he was afraid. He got up and fled for his life, and came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah. He left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, and came and sat down under a solitary broom tree. He asked that he might die. "It is enough now, O Lord. Take away my life, for I am no better than my ancestors." Then he lay down under the broom tree and fell asleep. Suddenly an angel touched him and said to him, "Get up and eat." This is the word of the Lord.
Amen. Let's pray. God, we give you thanks this morning for your presence here. We ask, God, that you would come and speak to us this morning through your word. And we ask, God, that you would help us to see you in new and fresh ways this morning. God, may we see that you are a God who answers by fire and the God who brings the rain. And we just pray for your blessings over our morning together this morning. And we pray these things in your holy name. Amen. You can be seated. Good morning, everyone. So we are going through a series called Fully Alive, in which we had asked everybody, hey, submit some stories from the Bible that you like, that you find make you fully alive. And we've had several of them kind of come in. Thank you, Leanne. Got a couple of chairs up here coming out. And this is one of them. This is one of the stories that people said makes them feel fully alive. So on this Sunday, Reformation Sunday, we're going to talk about Elijah. Now, we opened the story this morning at the end of the Elijah story. And we find Elijah hiding in a cave, right? And he's running for his life. Elijah's terrified because this crazy, powerful person wants to come and hunt him down and kill him. And so Elijah, like you would probably do, runs and hides in a cave. And then God tells him, "I'm going to pass by you as you're in that cave." And then this wind comes. And we find that even in the wind is like this traditional manifestation of the divine. God doesn't come to Elijah in the wind. Then there's an earthquake, another traditional manifestation of the divine. And God doesn't come to Elijah in the earthquake. Then we have fire, which we know is a traditional manifestation of the divine. People often found God and gods in the fire. And God doesn't come to Elijah in the fire. God comes to Elijah in a brand new, totally different, unexpected way. But before I tell you how, I want to tell you how he got into the cave in the first place. You with me? So Elijah the Tishbite appears in 1 Kings rather suddenly, almost unannounced out of nowhere. And when he does, he announces a drought over the land that actually ends up lasting for 3 years. Here's what he says. By the way, my sermon is called What is the Thin Silence? It says, "There shall be neither dew nor rain these years except by my word." So Elijah commands and sort of prophesies of this drought that will come over the land that actually ends up lasting for about 3 years. Now Elijah drops in the story in 1 Kings in the middle of the kingdom or the reign of King Ahab. And Ahab comes in the line of a lot of kings of Israel. Remember the very first king of Israel? Remember who it was? Saul. So the people of Israel demand that God give them a king like their neighbors had. Here's what happens in 1 Samuel chapter 8. The people of Israel say, "Now appoint us a king to lead us, such as all the other nations have." By the way, beware when you ask for things just because all of your neighbors have it. So give us a king as such as all the other nations have. But when they said, "Give us a king to lead us," this displeased Samuel. So he prays to the Lord, and the Lord told him, "Listen to all that they are saying to you. It isn't you they've rejected, but it's me they've rejected as their God. Because God wanted to be their king. He didn't necessarily want them to have an earthly king, but they begged for one because their neighbors had one. As they have done from the day I brought them out of Egypt to this day, they have forsaken me and served other gods. So God gives them a king, because sometimes God will just sort of give you what you want if you ask enough for it. And they get a king. They get Saul, not a great king. The next king was who? David. He's better, the greatest king in all of Israel. He did some shady stuff, no doubt, but he's a better king. Then after him was who? Solomon, David's son, the wisest king in all of Israel. But check this out. In Solomon's time, the kingdom of Israel was torn in two. How's that for unity in the body of Christ, right? Torn in two. There's a northern kingdom called Israel. The southern kingdom is renamed Judah after the tribe of Judah that is down there. The kingdom is split in half. And so Israel gets a whole bunch of more kings. And watch how it goes for them. The first king up, Jeroboam. After Jeroboam, we have Nadab. And the scripture tells us that Nadab did evil in the eyes of the Lord. Up after Nadab, we have Baasha. And Baasha did evil in the eyes of the Lord. This kingdom experiment is not going super well so far for Israel. After Baasha, we have Elah. And Elah was around for about 2 years, and he's murdered by a guy called Zimri. Who is Zimri, you ask? Well, he's the next king of Israel. Why not? And Zimri has a short reign. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord, apparently for only 7 days. It's all he lasted, and then he's out. Not going so well, is it? After Zimri, we have a guy called Omri, and Omri did even more evil than all of the kings before Omri. After Omri, we have a guy called King Ahab. Ahab is who we have in the story today. He is the king when Elijah drops in unannounced and pronounces a drought over the people of Israel, in the land of Israel. Now, check out Ahab, what the Bible says about Ahab. Ahab, it says, did even more evil than all of the kings before him. Things are not going so well in this kingdom experiment. Right? Ahab serves for 22 years, does more evil than all the kings thus far. He marries a Phoenician princess called Jezebel. You might have heard of Jezebel. Actually, he marries her before he becomes king. But Jezebel worshipped other gods. Remember, by the way, the number one command for the Israelites was what? Worship God alone. Serve God alone. Have one God. Well, the wife of the now king of Israel worships many gods. One of them is called Baal. Baal has, I think it's 450 or 400 prophets, right? And so, as sort of happens sometimes, when your wife worships other gods, King Ahab begins to worship Baal as well. And he built a temple to Baal in the northern capital, Samaria. The king of Israel built a temple for a pagan god. Jezebel also worships Asherah, and he also erects a pole called an Asherah pole that is a veneration of the prophet or of the god Asherah. So he builds a temple, constructs a pole for this god, all these foreign gods. Right? He actually sacrifices a couple of his sons in the process. Things are going terribly wrong. Ahab has gone totally sideways. So the prophet Elijah shows up. Now prophets, by the way, this is Baal, by the way, right? Not so tough looking. A little skinny guy. He's got great hair, though. Am I right? So the prophet Elijah shows up. And now a prophet wasn't just a fortune teller or someone who predicts the future. We often think of that. That isn't what they really were. Prophets came along with a message from God helping to correct the course. When things would get sideways or off the path, the prophets would come along and say, hey, stop. You're going the wrong way. Get back on the path. And they would come and they would bring a course correction for Israel. They would deliver the message of God to the people to help them figure it out. By the way, this is kind of what Luther was doing in the Reformation days. He wasn't trying to reestablish some new tradition or new stream or new church. He was trying to bring reform to an already kind of corrupted system. We need prophets. We need folks who will stand up when there's immorality. And by the way, well, I'll leave that for another day. But and just sort of help bring course correction. We need those people. And so this is what the prophet Elijah does. And he begins by announcing a drought over Israel. Now Baal, here he is, was a very famous god, right? Very popular. He was worshipped by a lot of people. He was the Canaanite god of the storms. Bum, bum, bum. And the god, get this, of the rain. So the storyteller's already telling you, hey, this God of the rain is not as powerful as this Elijah, or perhaps the God Elijah serves, who pronounces a drought, which is a stopping of the rain. You with me? This guy, Elijah, or his God, is more powerful than the God of the rain or the God of the storms. Right from Jump Street, you have this a bit of a conflict, a collision, because this guy, Elijah, pronounces a drought. And the drought lasts for 3 years because of the word of Elijah. How crazy is that? Now, Jezebel gets upset, as you can imagine, because he is attacking the god Baal, and is attacking the prophets of Baal, this Elijah is. In fact, and it wasn't even an entirely theological battle, it was a political battle. Check out what one scholar writes. Polytheism, which was normal in the ancient world, was an open system. There were always room for more gods. You could always have more gods. The relative strength of the gods was a political matter. As one country, empowered by its god and gods, sought to impose their will on other countries and their gods. It was a political battle. The slaughter of the prophets of Yahweh, by the way, because Jezebel, she gets so mad, she starts killing off all the prophets of Yahweh, Anakin Skywalker style. That's a slow burn. You might get that one later. She kills them all the prophets of Yahweh. Why? So read on. It was politically motivated, not theologically. The prophets of Yahweh would not likely offer support and legitimacy of Ahab and his kingdom and Jezebel, making them enemies of the state. So they wouldn't endorse this kind of kingdom or this kind of reign. It wasn't theological as much as it was political. And so they were enemies of the state. And that robs her of her power. And it robs King Ahab of his power because they're attacking their reign and their kingdom. And so what do you do when you're in power and your power is being threatened? Well, she starts killing them off one by one by one. So Elijah, like you do, goes and picks a fight. I love it. And he goes and starts this fight, right? Which is a bad idea because, and I'm mixing up my number. I think the prophets of Baal were 450 and the prophets of Asherah were 400. So if I'm doing my math right, and I didn't major in math, it's 850, right? To 1. This is a bad idea for Elijah. This is not a fight you want to pick. This is like that little guy in middle school who like picks fights with like the really giant guys and ends up getting pounded every time. You're like, yo, man, just shut your mouth. Just shut up. But Elijah can't help himself, and he picks a fight with the gods, or with the god Baal and Asherah and the prophets. And he goes to war with these guys. And so he says to them, he gathers all the people together of Israel. And he says, hey, how long will you go on limping or wavering between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow Yahweh. And if Baal is God, follow Baal. By the way, that word limping actually is, it's also translated as wavering. They're wavering between two opinions. That word could be translated as meaning like a religious dance. So it's almost like you have these two opinions in the land of Israel. And the people of Israel are sort of wavering back and forth, right? You have the God Yahweh, and they worship Yahweh, but they also have the prophets of Baal and Asherah, and they worship the prophets of Baal and Asherah, and they kind of waver back and forth. It's religious dancing, this limping back and forth. And Elijah's like, that's enough. We're not going to do that any longer. There's this warring for the people of Israel, for their attention, for their time, for their allegiance, and for their devotion. Like you have these two roads that are like divergent, and they're both calling to Israel, come and worship me. Come give me your attention, give me your time, give me your devotion, give me your allegiance. And the people of Israel are torn back and forth, back and forth. And you know, as often happens, when you kind of go back and forth and try to have your feet in both camps, you often end up getting split in half. So which one will you choose, Israel, between these two opinions? Remember, too, that God is anything that sort of sits at the center of your life, right? What's at the center of your life? Whatever that thing is, whatever you put your time and attention, your devotion, your allegiance, your checkbook maybe, towards, your calendar, your minutes of your day, your thoughts at night, whatever you teach your children, however you live your life, whatever's there, that's your God. And our lives are sort of built around that. Everybody has something that's at the center of their lives. Everybody has a God that demands our attention, our time, allegiance, and our devotion. What is the God of their lives? The people of Israel are split down the middle, and it doesn't go so well for them. So Elijah becomes this clarifying voice. He shows up like, enough! And he has what I call a come to Jesus moment with Israel, which Jesus hasn't come yet, so we'll call it a define the relationship talk with Israel. You know these define the relationship talks, right? Like when you're younger and you're dating somebody, or maybe a few somebodies, or maybe they're dating a few somebodies, and you're like, all right, what are we doing here? And for a while it goes unannounced or unspoken, you're just like, I don't know, whatever. Finally, someone's like, hey, what are we doing? Are we like dating? Are we like getting married? And the other one's like, ooh, you know? Or they're like, yes, we're getting married. But like, which road are we going down exactly? What are we doing? Can we define this thing a little bit more? And Elijah demands an answer. If Yahweh is God, worship him. If Baal is God, worship him. Let's see which God gives you life and brings you life. Which God brings the rain? Which God brings the fire? Whichever God it is, worship that one. It's like when Dr. Phil used to always say, I love this line. Dr. Phil would always say, hey, how's that working for you? Hey, which God brings you life and which God sucks or drains life? Whichever God brings life, worship that one. And the other one, well, let it go. You and I might have to have those kinds of conversations with ourselves or our families soon. Define the relationship talk. Like, what are we doing? What's at the center of our lives? And should it be there? What's demanding my attention and my time, my checkbook, my calendar hours, my focus, my thoughts? And should it be there? And what's at the middle of our family? And should that thing be there? Is this God that we're worshiping, is it bringing us life? And if not, I would just ask you, what are you doing? Also, don't feel guilty because we've all been there, right? But we need to readjust some things. Which God is at the center of your life? What's demanding your attention and your time and your allegiance and your devotion? What is giving you life? And I would ask it this way. What can or has the ability to give you life? Because many things we put there can't actually give us life. For Elijah, only Yahweh can give life. Because Yahweh is the God who comes by fire. Go ahead, Todd. Oh, hang on. Hang right there. Stay right there. And God is the one who answers by fire. Now, so here's what happens next. So Elijah has this contest. He picks a fight. And he takes all the people up to Mount Carmel. Here's a picture of Mount Carmel. And apparently Elijah drove his Subaru up there to Mount Carmel, like you do when you're going to Mount Carmel. And he gathers all the people up there. He's like, all right, hey, we're going to have a contest. All right? And by the way, mountains were considered holy places because they were elevated towards the divine. That's why they liked having mountains around. And going to the top of mountains. So say, hey, get bulls. So all the prophets of Baal, get a bull, and get me one too, and prepare your bull for an offering as a sacrifice. Cut it up into pieces, put it onto wood, put it on an altar, but don't set fire to it. And I'll do the same thing. And then we'll call on the names of our gods, and we will see which one descends by fire and absorbs or consumes the offering. Right? By the way, fire was considered a sacred element. It was symbolic of the presence of God or the gods. Remember the burning bush? Presence of God. Remember the pillar of fire in the wilderness? It's the presence of God. The throne in Ezekiel with the fire? It's the presence of God. Which God will show up today as by fire? By the way, fire is also associated with storms and lightning. Right? The God of the storms. Baal is also called the Lord of fire. This is a direct head-to-head matchup between Baal and God, or Yahweh. Which God will answer by fire? Also, fire symbolized the acceptance of a sacrifice. So they're making sacrifice here, and they usually come with a petition. The petition is for rain. It's been 3 years since they've had any rain. So they're asking God, or Baal, or Asherah, or Yahweh for rain. Which God will come by fire, and which God will bring the rain? The prophets of Baal go first, and they cut up their bull and they put it on top of the wood, and they go morning to noon, and they cry out to Baal. Oh, Baal! Answer us! Over and over and over again. And guess what? There's no answer. Now I have your attention too, don't I? Hey, by the way, how's that working for them? Is your God bringing you life? So they begin to cut themselves and spill blood. Because in the ancient world, you would cut yourself to draw the attention of the gods with your blood. How's that working for you? Is that God bringing you life? And they cry out over and over and over again, all day. And then Elijah gets up, and starts talking some trash. I love it. By the way, smack talk is totally biblical. You don't believe me? Check it out. Verse 27. At noon, Elijah mocks them, saying, hey, shout louder. Surely he's a god, right? Well, either he's meditating, or maybe he's wandered away, or maybe he's on a journey, I don't know. Or perhaps the guy fell asleep, and you got to wake him up. Roasted. And he sits back down. Right? It's awesome. Like, Elijah, that's cold, man. By the way, look at this. That word, go back one. The word for he has wandered away, that's a polite way to put it. The Hebrew word there is the word sig. Everybody say sig. Is Sig here today? Where is she? No? Okay. Sig's daughter is here, though. I already told her this, but anyway. So sig, which is not the same as sig, this Hebrew word could mean wandered away or departed. Guess what else it could mean? It could also be translated as defecating. I'm not kidding. Look it up. So he's like, yo, where's your God? Is he meditating? Did he fall asleep? Is he on the toilet? Oh, man, that's cold. That's messed up. And all day long until the evening, they cry out to Baal, and there's no answer, and there's no response, and nobody is even listening. Elijah gets up. It's my turn now. He prepares an altar with 12 stones for the 12 tribes of Israel. And he takes water. Remember, we're in a drought here, so be easy on the water, Elijah. But he doesn't. He takes it, pours this huge jug over the rocks. You know what? We need some more. Gets more. And everyone's watching like, what is this crazy man doing? We're in a drought. 3 years. Not anymore. By the way, water actually puts out fire. I don't know if you knew this or not. So if you're trying to have a fire light here, water's not going to be a good idea. Right? No one begins their campfire with a big bucket of water. I'm just telling you. If you do, you're doing it wrong. They get a third. More water. So much water is filling over into the trenches around the altar. Things have gotten nuts here a little bit. And then Elijah calls on Yahweh. And this is what he says. Oh God, Lord of Abraham and Isaac and Israel, let it be known this day that you are God in Israel, that I am your servant and that I have done all these things at your bidding. Answer me, O Lord. Answer me. So that these people may know that you, O Lord, are God and that you have turned their hearts back to you. And the fire fell. The fire of the Lord fell, and it consumed the burnt offering. But not just the burnt offering, it consumed the wood too, and the stones, and the dust, and it even licked up the water that was in the trench. And when they all saw it, they fell on their faces. Indeed, Yahweh is God. Indeed, he is God. This is the God who comes by fire and who brings the rain. Because, by the way, the petition was for rain. And look at verse 45. In a little while, the heavens grew black after 3 years, and clouds gathered, and wind, and there was indeed a heavy rain. Now, Jezebel hears about this, and you can imagine she's not happy. Also, a bunch of the prophets of Baal die because of this contest. A lot of them. And she's furious. Her power is being sucked out of her and drained from her. Her position of authority is being robbed because Yahweh has shown up again by fire and by water. So she goes after, don't go there yet, Todd. She goes after Elijah. Now, Elijah, the man, he just called down fire from heaven, spoke a drought into existence for 3 years. This guy's the baller. He ain't afraid of nobody, right? I fear nobody. He's not going to be afraid of Jezebel who wants to come and kill him and hunt him down. Watch what he does. Then Jezebel sends a messenger to Elijah saying, so may the gods do to me and more also, if I do not make your life like the life of those who died. I'm going to kill you, Elijah, she says. Then he was afraid. He gets up and he runs for his life. Are you kidding me? What in the world? Homie, you just saw the most amazing feat of God, and you run from Jezebel? And he runs, and under a bush, he cries out that God would take his own life. Then he goes to a cave, Mount Horeb. And in the cave, on Mount Horeb, the mountain of God, God comes to him and says, I'm going to pass by you. By the way, when you read the scripture, look for connections of locations and similar things happening and put them together. When else have we seen God put somebody in a hole in a rock only to pass by them? Moses. This is like a literal retelling of the Moses story. Mount Horeb is the mountain of God. And God's going to pass by him. And this wind comes and it shatters the rocks. Well, that must surely be God, because that's how God's come in the wind. But this God doesn't come in the wind. So then there's an earthquake. Surely that was God, this sign of power and strength and might, a traditional sign of God. But God does not come in the earthquake. Then there's fire, which we just saw is the sign of the presence of God. I mean, God, yesterday you did this in my life. Why can't we just keep doing that over and over again? God, why can't we go back to the way things were yesterday? It was so nice. You came in fire. I knew how to expect it and what you were doing. But God doesn't do the same thing he always used to do. God does new things. And God doesn't come in the fire. God comes, some scriptures say, in a still, small voice. Others say a gentle whisper. Your Bible, the NRSV, which is the most literal, one of the most literal translations, which is why it's hard to read, but it's actually the best one to read, Bible study-wise. The Hebrew is called the Mama Daka, and that means not a gentle whisper, not a small voice, but it means this, the thin silence, or sheer silence. That troubles people, because how can God appear in the sheer silence? They translate it as small voice or whisper. But no, God comes in the sheer silence, the thin silence. Great poet Rumi says this, silence is the language of God. All else is poor translation. Mother Teresa writes it this way, we need to find God, and he cannot be found in noise and restlessness. God is the friend silence. See how nature, trees and flowers and grass grows in silence. See the stars and the moon and the sun, how they move in silence. We need silence to be able to touch souls. Thomas Merton says this, this is what it means to seek God perfectly, to withdraw from illusion and pleasure, from worldly anxieties and desires, from the works that God does not want, from a glory that is only human display, to keep my mind free from confusion in order that my liberty may always be at the disposal of his will, to entertain silence in my heart and listen for the voice of God. See, God is found in the silence.
word is from 1 Kings, chapter 19, verses 1 through 5, page 284 in your Pew Bible. Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and how he had